Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the first meeting of the year. Good to see you all. It's been, feels like a whirlwind start of the year. I've had an opportunity to already travel quite a bit here, so appreciate all the comments regarding my son. Proud parents that he is living his dream to be a professional soccer player. So he's in Atlanta and already started. So mom was already missing him, and dad's looking forward to the day he's not on the payroll. All good, all good. So thank you all for that. And hopefully everyone had a safe, wonderful holiday season, and welcome back. A lot to do this year, and look forward to a new year. With that, I'll go ahead and open up call our meeting to order for our agenda briefing for January 9th, 2023. And I'll ask if there are any adjustments to the agenda briefing items as presented.
Mayor, I would like to make one additional item be added to the consent agenda, or not the consent agenda, but the pre-agenda agenda this afternoon, and that be a discussion of the proposed NORD ordinance that we were given, I believe, last August for us to study over and come back and discuss further and make a decision on at some time in the future.
Okay. Anything else?
That was it. Also would like to add closed session while we're already scheduled for one, but this one would be discussed with attorney possible litigation.
All right. My
Toward a
notes-
vendor,
my notes
just to
are
be
up.
clear, so everybody, what are they?
Yeah. My
It's
notes
toward
are
a
front.
vendor.
Jerry, do you know what that number is? Oh, Kim's got the
140
notes.
143-318 11A3.
11A3.
There will be two cases to be discussed. One's for an insurance company and matter, and the other one is for a vendor.
All right. Any other requested changes to the agenda? Council, you've heard requests from Mr. Hinkle on the noise ordinance and staff requesting an additional item under closed session. If there's no opposition, I'll ask for a motion to accept the agenda as presented with those two items amended.
So moved.
Is there a second? No second? Motion made, proceed to second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. We will follow along our agenda. First item is comments from council and myself. I will start with Mr. Now.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Happy New Year, and glad to be back, and looking forward to the things we can accomplish in 2023 for our town and our citizens. And I'm looking forward to Friday, our Martin Luther King Day celebration, and our work effort after the breakfast. So I'm looking forward to hearing our speaker. He was great last year, and looking forward to walking out feeling real good. So, thank you.
Mr. Harris.
Okay, I was going to tell things. One is, I knew that Emily had a lot of talents. She shows them all the time, but I did realize she was an architect too. I took a visit in the Parks and Rec house out there, and she's got a big area opened up in the middle and huge room there. Area for her office stuff. It's like, it's coming along really good in just a short period of time. So just congratulate her on how well she's disciplining those guys to make it look like it. That's going to be pretty impressive. The other one is, I happened to look about 2 or 3 weeks ago in the paper, on Sundays I looked through and something I don't see very much, but our Dunkin' Donuts here in town got 100% on their restaurant inspections. And these are surprise inspections, so to get 100%, I don't care who you are, people walk in and surprise, you just see something. And I always see a lot of A's, but not too many hundreds, and I just want to recognize our Dunkin' Donuts for getting 100. The other is, I wanted to ask the chief at Rumpel Street. A couple is, one is, did we ever get signs where you stop those trucks from coming down through there? I know the dump truck dumped a lot of gravel on our street for us the other day.
I know that I put in a work request to Public Works, and they should have been put up.
And there was another one that I was going to ask you about. I don't know if you could do that, but you know the house right across the road from me, the great, kind of sits down the hill? And for a long time, we didn't have anybody living there. Well, since the last year and a half or so, 2 years, somebody's been living there, there's like close to fights and stuff out there where people have blocked the driveway. Could we put a no parking or something from here to the turn or something like that? Because these people, even though they know they're there within, if other cars in front of them, they can't move, and there are people sitting out in the street, and,
During the school pickup?
Yes.
Times, which I can just have officers check that because our existing
but it's
parking.
just like aggravating for them. I'm sure that, they've here been there for 2 years, still can't get in and out of the driveway without somebody having the driveway parked there. And mostly it's obvious it's from the middle school. And then, when the buses are turning in, where they can't move up or back, where with grade school, they'll move up out of the way, so it's not as bad.
Yeah, it's something we could address through just officers going through and also through communicating with the schools to send out in their announcements to let parents know. That way, because our existing parking ordinance, and street ordinances do prohibit blocking driveways.
Yeah, I'd see a few of them jump out there, want to start arguing with the person who lives there a lot of time. I've seen a couple of times close to fights. I thought, maybe we could do something there with it. It's mostly the middle schools, I see that.
And just to echo what the chief said, absolutely understand the concern, but we did a holiday thing down there, and there was 4 or 5 school buses left, but there were several hundred cars. So the transition from people allowing their children to ride school buses to driving many miles and sometimes setting up an hour and a half early to start picking up their kids in the afternoons, that the laws are already on the books, as the chief said, that stops people from blocking driveways. So adding another sign
Doesn't do
don't
good.
change that, but it's also impeding the flow of traffic.
It may
But
make
the
sense.
school bears responsibility in making sure that if they're going to allow that they explain to parents to be aware of the
Yeah,
law.
that'd be good. I just hate to see, fight out there over something so silly. It's been pretty close a couple times.
Well, an emergency, they have to get out very quickly, and the car blocking the drive cannot.
Yeah, it's like, it seems like most of us at the middle school, the buses come in so they can't move up. Whereas with a grade school, they'll move on out of the way and pretty well get past it. I don't know why they keep parking the driveway. You think over time they learn, but.
Ms. Harris?
Happy New Year, everyone. I'm looking forward to a wonderful year on town council. I did receive a message from a citizen indicating how proud they were of their town, of our town, for doing the MLK. I guess they didn't see that we did it last year, but I put it in an Inglewood group, and they were so glad to see that, and they're very proud of our town. So that makes me happy to know that we're making our citizens happy and that we're including everybody. They're doing something for everybody. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Ms. Rocha?
Yes, well, first I would like to formally congratulate you and your son, as well as all the family. I know how the whole family has to feel on adding yet another professional athlete to our ranks here in Troutman. So I know the whole town's proud. This meeting does signify the end of my first year as a council member and the beginning of my second. I think 2022 was very educational for me. I learned a lot. And like you started off with, the whirlwind of 2023 has already started, but I think, at least myself, I feel better prepared to try to tackle some of these things, and I'm looking forward. I wish everybody a happy new year, and I hope everybody has a great start to 2023. And that's all.
Thank you. Not to rehash anything that's already been stated, but again, I appreciate staff for what you said. I just to make sure on the MLK. Before we leave it, Anything you need from council or you all need from council on MLK? We,
Dress and work clothes.
all right.
We'll be setting up Thursday evening. I think we're okay. Just some direction on what we want to do for lunch. Was that something you're gonna follow up with?
Okay.
I think you all had a conversation there, but some additional direction on plans for lunch, but that was all, I think. I think we got it planned and ready to roll. Thank you all for supporting and for coming, and, at this point, our portion of the RSVP was, 45, so that's what we're, between staff and council and community members and, cats, I'm not sure, what their number is, but the chef is planning on over 100, so pretty good.
Awesome. Good stuff.
Do you know what we had last year?
So,
Ballpark?
Attendance, roughly 40.
Okay. So excellent job. That's good growth, so.
And they're excited to partner with us and be a part of the career school, so I appreciate their support. They're always a good partner.
Good stuff. Thank you. Mr. Hinkle, anything on your end?
Well, as you say, Mayor, I don't want to repeat what's already been said. Everything I've heard, I certainly agree with, and kudos and so forth. As Felina said, Citizen had a positive comment, and I've heard several just about town in general. I know we sometimes hear the downside, but I've heard some good things from some good people, and believe it or not, some that have not been here all that long. So I don't have a list of names here, but you take my word for it. I have heard them, and people have expressed them to me, and I appreciate that. So it's good. It makes it worthwhile and gives you a good feeling when you're sitting up here doing the best you can and knowing that at least many citizens do realize what you're trying to do, and you can't be perfect, but at least you're trying, and that's all they can ask themselves and anybody else, and I appreciate that. I wanted to comment on Jerry's 1 year. He's kind of looking at his hair and it hadn't turned gray yet. But, we'll look at it next year, maybe third year. We'll see. I'll never forget that picture they showed of former President Obama when he first came into office and when he left 8 years later. Always think about that.
Yeah.
And, so we'll see what you look like.
Start asking for aging cream for Christmas.
There you go. There you go. And with that, sir, I'll pass it to you.
Great, thank you. So just a couple of things in addition. I appreciate all the work that staff did during the holidays. Again, just to restate, lots of comments that I had positive, how the town looked, and really several people had relatives come into town and shared that with me. So thank you for Public Works and everybody who kind of chimed in and made the town look good for the holidays. So again, we really appreciate that. I don't think we appreciate always how good the town looks, but again, I think it's always great when we hear from other folks as well. So again, thank you for that. And it sounds like we're going to do some more of that during MLK Day of Service, and so look forward to chiming in and participating during that day. Dr. King always asked that it was a day on, not necessarily a day off, and so we asked that folks in the community join us and participate in that day and in celebration of his life and legacy, and also how we support each other in our community. So thank everyone for doing that, and Emily and the staff for working with our schools to host this event. I know most towns have other groups who put on these types of events, and so we appreciate our staff and our town team for pulling together to do this. So it's important, and I think as Ms. Harris stated, I hear from the community, they appreciate it. So thank you for doing that. With that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Wyatt for any comments. At
this point, just a brief statement. He's not prepared. I didn't tell him to be prepared. But Chief Watson attended the local radio station, WAME, hosted a radio show this morning with the chiefs and the sheriff of the county, as today is National Law Enforcement Memorial, National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day. Memorial Day is 15th of May, but National Law Enforcement Officers Appreciation Day. Chief, is there anything you'd like to add?
You know, just like I told them when they asked, I appreciate our citizens, their community, our business owners, our council, our managers, support. We feel we're very lucky, especially in today's climate, that we have good support, and our goal is that we provide you all the service and professionalism that is worthy of that support. Thank you all.
Thank you all for what you do. Absolutely.
I wish you'd sent something out. I'd love to have heard that. I did not know you were gonna be on today.
I didn't know until early this morning.
If I could request, if you do have time, I'm talking just to you, I'm talking to our town manager and all of our staff, if you have time and you know you're gonna be on a radio show or any other, public stage, shall I say, if you could let us know, and if it's something we may want to tune in or even attend if it's possible, and if and it's okay, I'd like to know about it. I won't speak for anybody else, but I'd like to know about it.
And to add to that, a point of personal privilege, today is also one of my twins' first day of rookie school to become a law enforcement officer. And as we've said before, a couple citizens like, why is he not working for Troutman? Our policy prohibits that, and that's why it wouldn't make sense for me to have an immediate family member that I supervise, and that's just simply the way it is. But today was the first day of rookie school, and he is hoping to obtain a career. And as I have said to others, we all look at our children and want prosperous futures for them. And if we, as adults, could pick their careers, 90% of the kids would be doing something different when they're adults than what they actually become. But while I would not choose law enforcement as a profession, ideally, because I know the salaries, as you all have been gracious when we've come back and said, hey, this is what we've got to be to provide the basics. But as the chief said, the atmosphere this day and time is something to be desired in general. I'm very proud of the Troutman community and how they support our police and other staff members, but especially our police. There's very seldom a week that goes by that somebody hasn't dropped something off to show their appreciation, whether it be donuts, because they think that's cops' violence, or whether it be something else. But
No, it's not.
the chief himself does not like donuts, but the thought is appreciated, and again, our community is wonderful in support of law enforcement. Iredell County as a whole is real good about it. Several churches take times throughout the year, and some of the educators, their different classes will come by and offer cards and notes of appreciation. So it is good here in Iredell County, but especially in Troutman, and I'm thankful for that. Other than that, you all have discussed everything. Just a couple tidbits without getting into all the details. Somebody worked their ministers who were the network to the man upstairs. It was supposed to rain Friday, but that has since changed. It's supposed to rain Thursday now, so we should have a good day Friday for our work. We've got several projects, middle school, elementary school, Rumpel Street, town parking lot, both of them, on Wagner and across on Main Street. And depending on what time it is, there will be some painting involved at the town parking lot on Main Street to do the high-rise yellow and those areas. In the middle school, elementary school areas, there will be some equipment used. Not that we don't trust the general public, it's not that case at all, but we will utilize town equipment, saws and shears and things of that nature. We'll just need help picking up the debris and the limbs and things that get trimmed in those areas so that people can see better. We also have the one volunteer from last year, Richard Coleman, says he now has 2 of those high wind machines that he used down at exit 42. That will come in great, and the parking lots both on Main Street and the one over on Wagner. And then if time stays with us, then we've got a couple other areas, depending on the amount of volunteers that we have, that we would like to clean up in and around the town also. But I thank Emily and other staff for coming up with the projects we tried to identify by word of mouth. If there was a person of need in the community that we could benefit, we was unable to identify that way. Next year, we may try a different method to try to identify someone in need that we could help with a project at their house. For example, if it's a handicapped person needing a ramp, or because of our town ordinances, one that's come under discussion recently, just like what we're talking about here, is shrubs and or trees overhanging into the streets that are town streets, then the property owner is responsible for that. We certainly do realize and understand sometimes that resident may not physically be able, and because of their financial situation, may not be able to hire to work out. While we are sensitive to those situations, we still have to do what's best for all, and that's when we have Earth Day and MLK Day are the two events that we really try to clean the town up and benefit these areas, especially if it's a traffic or pedestrian safety issue that we identify. Having said that, our signs at Wagner Street for the school crossing has been knocked down and destroyed 3 times this year. Those signs are about $400 a piece.
Feels like
One in particular has been destroyed 3 times. The other one is soon going to need to be replaced, but the supply chain has not caught up. Even though we keep an extra one here, we may have to try to start keeping 2 extra, because it's almost like somebody intentionally or on purpose is destroying the one. But we have a new one up there, the middle school entrance. That street is the name of that street in?
Thomas.
Thomas, yes.
Didn't you move it down a little further too?
We have.
That's what I thought, it was been moved again.
Every time it gets destroyed, we move it another foot.
And you almost have to tack it to get it down. It's far enough down there, you gotta go for it.
It's to the point now, tractor and trailer can turn there if they know how to drive. But the people that don't know how to drive uses as an excuse is that main old sign just jumped out and hit my vehicle. But that's all I have as far as staff.
Thank you. Next is item for discussion. Turn it over to Mr. Wyatt.
The designated voting delegate to recommend for North Carolina League of Municipalities. The vote is actually required Thursday, and it's relatively simple. You all received an email of the topics that they would like for you to consider. I responded by email to you all of 10 that I thought. That's certainly not ironed in stone, but whomever you all pick as the delegate will need to log in so that Kim can send them the name and contact information, and then cast your vote based off of your peer council members as to what those 10 items you think should be. Councilman George Harris and I spoke, and I absolutely agree with his top 3 he identified. But it's certainly all of those, everything on that list has some merit. It's just some of those things does not necessarily impact Troutman the way it would another town or municipality. So I'm not shortchanging any of the 16 options that they had, but to me, at least 8 of those are clearly important to us and to you as to whomever you pick as the delegate.
And just so that folks know, I am on the board for the league. Happy to be that delegate for casting those votes. Again, appreciate the feedback that folks have shared. But if someone else would like to do that, happy to point you all to make sure you're a delegate. I think it's good to have your experience with the league. They'll be doing a lot this session, as you can see from kind of the priority issues. Those aren't all the issues that they'll be dealing with, but those are, again, some of the top priorities that they'll be addressing during the session. There's a number of things that just don't show up on that list because the league feels like it's kind of their duty, it's their role to represent the municipalities at the General Assembly. And so, again, not everything is on that list, but again, these are just, each year they have a group to come together and start to put those priorities out there.
And I kind of agree with, like, town manager says that the 16 of them all are good, but when I went through, I saw 8 that I thought really applied to us, and more as the rest of them were good. I mean, like the polluters, because we don't really have the water, I don't think that would have been one, but it's also good, it's for the ones, especially have a water plant, because I remember, if you remember the DuPont Parkersburg plant and our PFAs getting over there in the river, across the river in Ohio, we ended up paying for a bunch of water plants. So I know that side of that too. Anyhow, you're already the delegate for our council, so I need to make a motion. I can do that. Is that what we need?
It was Thursday, right, you said? The vote needs to be Thursday.
So gotta move to a Thursday. We can do it now again.
Yeah.
So I'd
No,
like to
no,
make a
no.
motion.
The vote has to be cast Thursday. The decision needs to be made today so that they can cast the vote.
Apologies.
I'd like to make a motion.
Thank you for
That our
clarification.
mayor is our voting delegate for this council, town of Troutman.
Second?
Motion's on the floor, received a second. Any other question or comment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Guess I can't back out when I can't vote. Motion passes, thank you.
Mayor, do you have that email? You can either sign yourself up, or I can fill the form out and email it in. All you'll have to do is go in and vote. They'll send you an email confirmation.
And
that
I
you
think if I
can-
remember correctly, they have to have the information and get that to him.
Right.
So he can vote they have to have the ballot to him by Thursday.
Yeah,
And the vote has to be in
Do you
by
want me
Friday.
to sign you up, or do you want to sign yourself?
we'll work on it after the meeting.
Okay.
Now I get the timeline. He's got it. Okay,
Yeah.
we're good. All right.
I mean, I still didn't get it explained.
Like I said, what's been a whirlwind already, so.
Next item is discussion date for the annual strategic planning retreat. Mr. Wyatt?
That's entirely up to you all's schedule. I think the feedback we received from you all last year, you enjoyed the planning retreat here. Accessibility to staff, that way the majority of them could go about their normal work, but if we needed to ask a clarifying question, they was here. And being straightforward, it is simplistic for us to do it here because we don't have to worry about reserving a facility. Depending on how far you all would travel to go to another area, historically in the past, the most recent place it was held other than here was at the state park. The only issues that I can recall participating there myself was internet access. It fluctuated a little bit, even though they gave you their Wi-Fi password. You may or may not still have internet access, and most people's cell phones, because of whatever carriers, did not work. Now, I don't know if that's improved since those years that we've hosted there. A couple council members has at least voiced that there would be some benefit if we had an overnight stay somewhere as a team building exercise, to have dinner together. I certainly think that there is benefit to a situation like that. All I will say is for this year, we didn't budget for anything like that. But there's nothing that says we can't have 2 retreats, and most larger towns do have 2 retreats. As we well know, and as you all know, because we come back asking for budget amendments and exceptions like that, things out of our control happen, and you can set another planning retreat for specific agenda, not just hearing a general report from all of our departments. One thing that I will tell you all about that would take up at least half of a day, if not more, is at some point in time in the near future, we all need to identify, okay, what's the new town hall gonna look like? Where is it gonna be? When are we prepared to do that? What are the numbers looking like? So if we wanted to have a fall retreat to discuss an issue that important, or that high of a discussion, because in that one, we can go, like I say, a minimum of 4 hours and not really feel like we got all of our answers answered. We would certainly want to have some community input and a topic that huge. So just throwing it out there, up to you all on how you would like to meet. But for our annual retreat, we are at least suggesting selfishly that it remain here for accessibility of staff and ease of them coming and going. Up to you all. Last year, I think we broke the budget part in 2 days. That way, for those that are full-time employed, they could still get their work done. We had breakfast one time, I think, and then broke before lunch, and you went on your own for lunch. The next time, we had lunch here and then finished out the day before a town council meeting. So it's certainly your pleasure in what you all think you would like to do, whether it's designate a whole day and carve it out, which is what we did for the strategic planning session, and we certainly are able to accomplish each. I will tell you, it's the least impactful if we do it all in one day. That way everybody knows what's coming and it's done, and we don't have to worry about what was or was not discussed the last time and rehash part of the meeting for that. But we'll serve at your pleasure.
I would say a couple of things. One is, as far as strategic planning retreat, it seems like each year we have that discussion, kind of the update, if you will, from each one of the functional areas. I think that needs to continue happening. I think that's, you know, I know for me, it's always good to just kind of think about what happened the prior year, and then, so what are you thinking for the coming year? I think the other piece of that is, again, the budget part of that, to me, seems like it should be more toward the end, after we've kind of heard from the functional areas, departments. What are you thinking about? What are you looking for? And allow council to take an opportunity, because a lot of this is supposed to build up toward, you know, the budget planning conversation that we'll have. I also like the idea, and we kind of tossed this around before, somewhat of working sessions. So New Town Hall to me is a great one of those working sessions that maybe we need to think about throughout the year. Is there another topic that we need to set aside, carve out more than 30 or 40 minutes just to try to hash it out and not get fully, get it fully fleshed out. But to me, I don't think we can, to your point, fully, address town hall in one session. So I almost feel like that needs to be kind of set aside for a working session discussion. But look forward to council other thoughts, comments that you all might have as well.
Well, I've been both, the overnight stay and here most of the time, here, over the years. I didn't get a whole lot more other than just, being in somewhere else. I didn't get a whole lot out of it. Now, I'm just one person. Obviously, there were 4 others there on the council at the time, and they may have different thoughts, but I've always found that just being here is fine. People say, well, if we need to get away, not to be distracted. Well, we're all adults. Cut your phones off. If there's an emergency, have a contact at town hall that your wife or spouse or whomever can call and say, I need, he needs to come home, or something like that to take care of emergencies, but otherwise, turn your phone off, stay in this room, don't get up and go out and talk to somebody in the parking lot that you've made previous plans to talk to that day. Concentrate, focus strictly on here, and to me, the reason that we'll be distracted if we, or, that you hear from some councils and commissioners, we won't be distracted. I don't know, it doesn't hold a lot of water for me. I'm fine with that, but again, if it's the will, I would certainly go with a smile and be happy with it too. But I don't know that it's necessarily something we need to do to have a better retreat. And again, I'm referring to the overnight stay. To address the points of having separate retreats for particular subjects, line more time, such as the town hall, additional space for our growing staff, and infrastructure, which is very near and dear and always a concern. Not that I'm worried, but I'm always concerned on all of our hearts. Would be another one that we could do, take the whole day off and half a day for the town hall, half a day for the infrastructure, or how we'd want to prorate it, do something like that. But I certainly agree with that as well. And because sometimes it seems like, when we don't do things as a group, you have certain members that know something and the other members are not quite up to snuff on it. And we should all be equal in our information, what we have, so that we can discuss it, we're aware of it, and when it comes time to vote, make decisions, we all make decisions that are based on current information, full knowledge, and you don't have somebody just kind of taking a guess, making a decision that they don't have all the facts on, while another one has plenty. So by having these individual retreats, that way we would all be, especially on the major issues, we would all be up to snuff and current on our information in deciding what we do for the future in the operation of the town.
Other thoughts, comments?
I must say that I've only been to the state park and then here. I was a whole lot more comfortable here at the state park. There's those small rooms, and then we tried to eat in this other room behind us and getting out about. This was just as comfortable as anywhere else. And like I said, still we're there as a group with a discussion on the budget, and listen to what the things are coming up next year. So I personally thought this was better. Unless we could go to Cancun or somewhere like that, maybe.
Good luck.
I think we need 2 days though, because last year, we barely got what we kind of really needed to talk, and let's have the right amount of time to discuss, the budgets, because the department's got to come to us and say, hey, this is what we like, or this is what we need, and then we got to decipher that and say, well, we can only give this much, or we could give that much. So I think it would be too rushed one day, 2 days are good, and maybe 2 full days. I mean, if we end early, we end early.
Well, just as a point of clarification, the retreat is basically a status of where we've been, where we are, where we think we need to go, that then sets questions, hopefully, and input from you all. We will come back the second day and the planning retreat, and if necessary, another partial day, and that also can be decided here if you all like. But we do the retreat that basically gives us a status update. What policies, if anything, you all ask us to do, what's the feedback from that? Do we need to change anything? And then it's basically a departmental report of this is what I've done, this is where I hope to go. And I'll just use Parks and Rec for an example. If we have discussed for a couple years, hey, we want to build a concession stand at the ball fields, well, there's reasons why we haven't been able to do that. At the retreat, that gives Emily time to explain where we are with that specific request. But we also need other things, such as the master plan changed or updated, I guess is the best word, and it allows her to explain where we are in that status. Then when we come back for the budget, that explains the numbers of what we need to do based off of you all's desire, based off of our retreat and our proposals. It may be staffing, it may be other things that when we come back to the budget retreat, which is the second day, to your point of here's where we're at and what we're trying to accomplish with the numbers, then that's when it gets hard on you all, is if the department heads are asking for more, then I have to sit down and say, hold on, even though this is all their request and your input from the retreat, here's the priorities, unless you say different, because ultimately, you all are the one that decides both, where we're going with future policy and where we're going with future growth, but also how to fund it at the same time. So, but you are right, it takes at least 2 days to accomplish the whole thing, but we call them two different things, and it is minimum of 2 days.
Right, and here's fine, I think it's perfect, it works out very well here. But,
I think they, traditionally, a day and a half, is allotted, but again, if we need more, as you said, if we need more time, we need more time. Whether it's, we do it a Friday and half a day Saturday, or all day Saturday, if that's what's required. But to me, if we need to come back another day, a week or two later, then we need to do that. I mean, I don't want to box us in, that we've got to get things done within this certain time limit, and because then you make rush decisions, and you leave things out, and you make, hasty decisions that may come back to bite you later on. So, and I agree, and I didn't, when I said about the overnight thing, I was not referring, we do everything the same day, but, that we just hold it here and come back Saturday morning, all day Saturday if required, to get things done. But I certainly agree, whatever time's required, we take, to do the retreat correct and make the right decisions, especially when it comes to the, planning for the budget, upcoming budget.
we had some nice, when I say nice discussions, it was very well, the input was good. And we were a little bit last year on a time limit where the mayor had to kind of move us along a little bit, and rightfully so, I'm glad he did. But to get everybody's opinion out in the air, what they kind of think is,
And
it's a good thing, I mean, at the end of the day.
Sometimes the simplest things we can bring up, and an hour later, we're still discussing where we thought maybe it'd just be a 5 or 10 minute thing, so, and
Like
that
where we wanna
continues
do
to
a
happen.
retreat.
And it continues to happen, and it will, and I'm sure it'll happen this time. But again, we've got to allow for those things, and I don't wanna feel like I'm rushed when I'm making some very important decisions, which is what comes out of those retreats, are some very important decisions, as you say, for the future, not only for the upcoming fiscal year, but fiscal years, setting policy, and growth targets, and developmental plans within the town, operations, for the future. And if it takes 2 days, if it takes, breaking it up in 2 different weekends or something, what it takes for us to do things right and to feel comfortable when we're over, that we've got all the information and adjusted it and hopefully made the right decisions as a result.
Let me make sure I hear from.
Where I'm at, is more on the date and time. Do we have a target window of when we need to get this done, or?
Historically, it's done in February, and then we turn around and start back in March with the budget.
We haven't heard from councilwoman, what do you prefer?
Either one.
As long as it's a female.
Okay. Haven't heard from her yet, so I don't want to step on her toes, but it seems like most everybody thinks we should probably do it here. I totally agree. Granted, that's the only format I know, but I think it went very well. Just like you said, having the resources in building, when not spending money on hotels and all that stuff, and what little money we do spend for this is actually going to a local place to provide the food or whatever. I just think that's perfect for what we are as a town. And then the same thing, if we travel somewhere and book a hotel, and like you said, when we feel that time crunch, it's only going to be magnified, and so then it's more things are going to slip through the cracks. I would rather not it extend into like a week, or a week-long retreat.
Sure.
But I think at least keeping it here, I think it frees us up to get, like you said, have the discussions we need to have, and be sure that we're all on the same page and not looking at the clock. So, and I think it'll be easier to schedule in February if we do it here. It'll be easier. I think it'll be better that way.
So did I hear two different things, though? I thought I heard you say two different things, like, we were talking about the budget and the planning, and then the one that you were talking about in the fall was for something different, right? Or,
My suggestion was similar, so we don't feel like we're boxed in, and I certainly agree. As staff, I can't predict if Chief Watson is doing a presentation about his status. I can't predict what, if any, particular item you all are gonna want us to, he and I may determine it's a half-hour presentation, but there may be something there that you all, as elected officials, wanna talk about, and it goes down a rabbit hole, justifiably so, and that half hour turns into an hour and a half, which then throws the rest of the schedule off, which is what they were saying, the mayor had to keep getting us back on point. Any conversation on fact finding is worthwhile, but it's hard for us to plan and say, I think the chief's only gonna have a half hour, but then an hour and a half later, we're not done. So to everybody's point, I don't want to box us in to where it has to be done in one day, but ideally, we should be able to accomplish it in one day unless some things come up that I really simply cannot tell you that y'all gonna wanna discuss this one more. The reason I mentioned the fall is we do have a couple things, that one being the obvious one, as Mayor Pro Tem also said, infrastructure. We certainly, whether it be quarterly or semi-annually, can schedule something else that's focused just on one or two topics. Because to everybody's point, once we start the new town hall discussion, that's not a one meeting and done deal. That one will be the groundwork for all the questions and the fact finding, the community inclusiveness that sets out a schedule for us to get all of those things apart before we make a decision. It could be a year, maybe longer, to identify architect, if we want to do that first, or if we want to do design build. There's all kinds of discussion with that I wouldn't want to say, let's do it in the retreat, because even though it's the groundwork to start, that in itself, I think is one of those, if I look at all of us individuals in this room, and that includes staff, we all have an opinion of what we need or will need, and when we plan that project, we should design that building knowing that it's a minimum of a 20 or 25 year before any altercations are made to it. And I'm not throwing a stone, I'm just stating factually, just like Lake Norman High School. When they built it and opened the first day, they had trailers on the front lawn because it wasn't big enough. This town hall that we're in, less than 12 years after it was built, they was doing an expansion on it because it was not built big enough. And as we all know, materials and cost are never going down. Now, they'll fluctuate a percentage, small percentage, but if you build it versus coming back 10 years and adding on to it, the cheapest time to build it is build what you need for that 20-year or 25-year plan. And that's why I threw that out there as a topic, and that's not the only one. We can come up with whatever you all prefer. But that was one example of them saying, hey, let's come back for the fall to discuss that, because we've kicked that can down the road long enough.
right. So, I agree with having the one you were talking here. I agree with that. And I'm in favor of having something later in the fall to discuss specific topics as a retreat or whatever, as Ms. Gilroy say, a team building retreat or whatever. I'm in favor of that as well.
If I may add to your point of what you just said, one of the things that we as staff can do, like a new town hall, for example, is look at some towns across North Carolina who are similar sized and growing that have recently built a town hall, and see if they would mind hosting us there so that they can show us, this is what we just built. This is what we learned, what we didn't learn, and that may be one option as far as we all get a van or a caravan and go and visit one or two if that's what it is, so that we can learn from them.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I really would like that to be, just listening to the points you were making, That needs to be completely separate, right? You know, it's one thing to, you know, as department heads, you know, and town staff to prepare a projection for the next calendar year. Like you said, this is a 3-decade projection,
Right.
right? And so to say, work on both of these and present them both at the same time is not effective, let alone fair. And so I'm on board with that as well. I
It
think
sounds
that's-
like we were combining them, that's why I asked them.
Yeah, keep them completely, I agree.
So is everybody, at least what I heard, is everybody good with having the first session in February? Anybody opposed to that?
As long as the dates are good.
Well, we're just gonna start with the month right now. Now we're gonna try to narrow this down.
Low hanging fruit's the month.
Yeah, I gotta start there. Everybody go, no.
You've done this with us before.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor. Once or twice, you know, so, so historically, again, we've done this kind of the middle toward the end of February, so, anybody opposed to, we'll start with the week of the 12th. That is, that's a non-council week. The council week is the week of the 5th through the 11th. So this would be the week after, unless folks want to do it the week of council. Anybody opposed to doing it the week of council?
Yeah, be too much. And the
Got it.
following week on Wednesday, I have card vote
Okay,
on that evening, so
so,
that'll be a problem. That's the one thing I have there.
great week for myself either, but Friday the 17th,
I'm out.
okay.
Lisa?
Daytona.
Yeah, okay. So, what about Monday the 20th?
You like?
Won't be back.
Yeah.
I'll go back to the following week.
Oh, you won't be back? Okay,
I don't come back to the 25th, which is a Saturday.
Saturday. So that, what's that, the 27th? 27th?
That's good for me.
That's a
Good
Monday.
for me.
Planning
Anybody
board that night, yeah.
posted the 28th?
We have planning board that evening at 7, so just
Okay.
time-wise.
On the 28th,
27th.
27th, sorry.
Anybody opposed to the 28th? Just trying to get dates right now, 28th.
That's good.
So, why not propose we do it on the 28th, since you have to overlap planning board. I know Lynn likes to spend the night here, but prefer that she not spend the day and the night. But let's shoot for the 28th for the first meeting. And we can discuss the next, if we need a follow-up after that, at that meeting. So we'll make that the last item on our agenda.
Okay.
Just schedule it for one day?
Yes.
Unless we have something, and who knows if we do, but one day should be fine, but if not, we certainly adjust to whatever's not finished. And I may try to make the schedule buffer a little bit to where there's time to lapse in case one goes longer, and if it don't, then we can start the other one sooner.
Full day,
Mhm.
8,
Full day.
Breakfast and lunch.
8 to 5, okay.
If we go into dinner, Jerry, it's on Jerry.
Hope y'all like jelly beans. Or cookies.
Bring some more of those German gingerbreads.
Oh,
Those
yeah.
Those
Oh,
was
yeah.
good.
All right, we'll shoot for the 28th, full day, and we'll discuss if we need to go into a second day at that meeting on the 28th.
Thank you, sir.
What would be the beginning time, 8 a.m.?
Good.
Good by us.
And heads up too, that week is board packet week.
Good luck, Kim.
It's board packet week.
And,
Um,
and,
I was just kinda giving them a heads up.
Well, we wouldn't add another day.
I was gonna say, please don't have another day.
Yeah, we wouldn't add.
It's gonna make it very hard to get packets out.
Okay, all right. Sounds good.
8 a.m. Okay.
All right, next item on the agenda is overview of the meeting on Thursday. All right.
you have your consent agenda items. We have several, budget approvals. Justin is here if you've got any questions as to any of those. If there's anyone that jumps out in particular, feel free to ask. I'll try to, explain what those are. A lot of this, as I was talking to Justin, just to state for the record and all of our viewers that may be online, even though some of these items breaks out to you all as to a line item change, this does not at this point change our overall annual budget. Justin, is that accurate? From what we can see so far?
Yes, yeah, so for utility fund, 4 of those 10 amendments is for utility fund, and we're not even touching fund balance, because they've had water and sewer availability fees that, for these new developments that cover those expenditures thus far. And then for general fund, we're hitting fund balance for the amendment of $243,909 for those 6 budget amendments for the general fund. However, last year, I believe we had 600,000 or 700,000 that we hit for budget amendments throughout the year to fund balance. But when all said and done, final numbers at the end of the year, we really didn't touch, but maybe 100,000 of that. So, if that makes sense.
And then the extra part of this is, as we discussed earlier when we're talking about the retreats, the whole purpose of a budget is our target expenditures. As the year starts, we may have to adjust or change. One of the things that we discussed was the truck that we had ordered the previous year for Public Works. It, for COVID reasons and everything else, couldn't be available. Then once we changed the truck and went to a different price, that's just an example, which, by the way, is supposed to be built this month. But that's just an example of we're coming back and tweaking the budget so that it fairly is portrayed accurately during audit and for anybody scrutiny that wishes to look at the budget. But because of the way we do our annual targeted expenditures, at this point, we should still be in line with what we had expected to expend. And some of these trucks, like a new Public Works truck, that one, you have to order not knowing if it's gonna show up in 3 months or a year. And unfortunately, that's just the way the business is for ordering trucks. Do you all have any other questions?
Mr. Manager, I several of these, I've got questions, and it's just, not concern, but just a matter of knowledge.
Sure.
If you don't mind, items C or sub-item C, whatever, increase in auto insurance, and I'm presuming that's to cover additional vehicles we have?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay.
So
all right.
they'll send me, as we get a new vehicle, they'll send me, here's an additional bill, because that's paid in July for our, annual premium.
Right.
But then when we add additional vehicles,
That makes sense, yeah. The next question I had, D, lobbying, and I understand, again, I don't have a concern there, but I do, want to be aware. We're talking about hiring a professional lobbying firm
We do have
to help us out in Raleigh.
Yes, we do have one.
Okay. Next, okay, the Public Works truck, is that an additional truck or just a replacement?
It will be replacing one that is not, up to par, and it's the dump truck specifically. That truck simply, for example, with the new rec, house that we are working on now, there's a couple buildings out back that are not functional and need to be tore down, and it's not that we don't want them, they are unsafe to remain in any capacity, and it would cost us too much money to try to rebuild those and keep them. So it's easier to demolish them and take them off. Well, instead of paying a third-party company to do that, if we had the proper size dump truck, we could crush it with the track hoe and then pick them up and take them off. Due to the size of our dump truck, it would take 3 times as much labor and effort to do it. So then it gets into a cost factor of, do we hire a third party? And we are at a big enough town now to where we do more and more projects, even as simple as a water line break to where they're having to bring sand and take old stuff off and dump it. The truck we have is just not simply big enough to handle that. So it will be replacing one we have. Part of that money will come back once the one that we have is a functional truck. It's just not big enough to do the job that we need it to do.
Okay, I understand. Could you expound, either you, Mr. Manager, or you, Justin, on item F, the sprayer, spreader, excavator? Are we talking, sprayer, spreader, excavator? Are we talking one piece of equipment or 2 different ones? Excavator and a sprayer, spreader? I mean, can you elaborate on that, please?
There's several pieces. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the excavator is the majority of that. The excavator was 85,000.
Replacement for the current excavator that we have?
Yes, and
Okay.
the one that we do have will be sold, so there'll be
Right.
funds to come back to show that. At this point, we just can't tell you what those will be.
Okay. And then the sprayer, spreader, I presume is one piece of equipment, or?
Yeah, it was a little over $14,000.
And what is this sprayer, spreader? What does it do? What is it? I mean, other than just, obviously it's a sprayer, spreader, but what is it? Something for public works, lawn care and so forth?
No, it's for right of way. And clearing the right of way, it helps spray.
Okay.
Out there, and part of it is for the, sprayer we have out here in this building. I forget what it's called. It's 2 pieces of equipment. One's a sprayer and the other one's a spreader. But this one out here will maintain our parks and our greenway, dethatches, fertilize, and sprays the, whether it be chemicals for insect control or whether it be fertilizer that's put out. So yes, what you're asking is appropriate. It's 2 pieces of equipment. One goes to Public Works as far as the right of way. The other one is to be used for parks and the greenways.
And so again, as you say, spraying, and then the spreading, what would it be spreading?
Fertilizer.
Fertilizer, okay,
Mhm.
very good, okay. Excuse me just a second, I think that's,
Or pest control.
yeah, okay, I understand, okay. I think everything else is pretty much self-explanatory to me, thank you, appreciate it.
Could I ask, while Paul was talking about that, I'm looking at the same thing Paul's talking about, and could someone, security and door access for Town Hall 64910?
Yes, sir. That's what we had said last month. We had received a partial grant on. But the security and the door here was, when this building was built, I don't remember the year now, I just lost it.
90 or 91?
When it was originally built, it was about 2/3 the size it is now. And then when they come back and added on to it, for example, some doors work with a key, some doors work with a fob. And while it was pragmatic at the time, we have had numerous people come and go over the years. Well, the key itself, every time you had a loss of a key or whatever, then that's a security risk for who knows what happened to the key. We have identified more than 10 keys that for whatever reason, over the years, got gone. One particular person lost 2, and for whatever reason, they just got gone. So it's the security of the building to have the locks themselves rekeyed to one key, on one hand, would have been less expensive, but because of the layout of the building, everybody don't need a key. And for modernization, for us to know who's coming and when they're going and when not, it made sense to go to the electronic key fob. That way, somebody swipes the fob, you know Ron Wyatt came in this door at this amount of time. We still needed other offices here locked. One key worked every office in the building. Well, depending on whose office that is, let me back up a second. It did not work the police chief's office or the detective's office or the evidence room or the vault. Otherwise, all of our keys would work each other's office door and we could come and go, whether that be finance, HR, clerk, or whoever. So to give protection of these doors, each one of those keys needed to be rekeyed to where if the clerk wants to lock her door, then it's locked. Especially the financial records and the HR offices. HR, for obvious reasons, needs to be locked to where everybody else don't have an access to that door. So when we went to West Construction, PS West Construction, to get them in, and we used Alarm South as the security to do part of it. Also, the Public Works system, they had the old, basically the door opener things like you use for a garage. So one of those could get traded out and anybody could come in. You don't know if they're coming or they're not coming. And over the years, not in the last couple, but previously, they could come in and find that somebody had been in the shop using equipment. Well, that's a liability issue to us if an unlicensed or unknown person is in there using the equipment after hours and nobody knew who come and go, or who came and went. So we put key fobs for our hallways. The entrance to the building from the back and the side are all now key fobs. That way we know who comes and who goes. If somebody used a key to open up the front door, they can't get into any other door other than the bathroom. They still have to have the key fob to go down the halls or to go anywhere else. So for us to secure the building for sure and to know who comes and goes, this was the process.
So Public Works is all key fob too then, right?
It is now. Yes.
Gotcha. Oh,
And
great.
our police chief is the one that issues the key fobs. So, for an extra security.
Because I remember when Adam was having people go into the Public Works and doing work on cars.
Right.
That
And-
wasn't number one, authorized to be done or what.
So, and we even have, part of the, pavilion even has
Fob.
fobs now. Because this way, Ron Wyatt may only need access at certain times and certain hours. That can be programmed in to where if it's any time outside of that, I can't use it. Or if for some reason council terminates me today, as long as it takes him to get to a computer, I no longer have access. And the way things were previously, and for workplace safety, we simply didn't know who was coming and going and when. And numerous times, people just walked down our hall because somebody opened the door and let them in. So we changed the process for that also. And yes, instead of, as we have in the past, multiple people wearing multiple hats, security of our facility and workplace felt was most appropriate for the chief to handle that. And we were in complete discussion. I mean, he don't come and tell me, well, Duck, I'm not gonna let you in these buildings today. I mean,
Right.
it's all, it's matter of fact. And no offense, but the planning department does not need to have access to Public Works, so their key fob wouldn't work down there.
So the planning department has key fobs as well,
They do.
and the Department of Rec building will.
There will be one put there once it's complete.
You know, we did have a situation this before your time, but, where keys were being given to groups that were coming in here in the evening, you know, and instead of somebody wanting to come and, they just gave them a key and said, you know, and then turn it back in, and sometimes the keys got gone that way.
Yes.
Plus, you know, I wasn't comfortable with that key just being given out, you know, the honest person, but if they lose it, again, it's a liability, but same time, just handing out your keys willy-nilly, access to town hall is not good.
And also, as a reminder to you all, that those are points that I don't remember when I had the discussion with you all, but our policy that was in place stated, for example, Emily is over pavilion rentals, therefore she or staff comes and checks to make sure that John Smith is here because that's when he rented it and nobody's interfering with that. Well, it didn't make sense that, especially the one-person department was coming up here multiple times on every Saturday or Sunday unless somebody else volunteered to do it, staff-wise, but yet we was giving keys out to town hall and nobody being here. So the policy stated that our clerk is in charge of rental of this, and that's been followed since as well. But yes, I'm aware of at least 2 keys that were lost to groups and nobody knew what happened. But now, none of the keys work that people has had, so they got a souvenir if they've got them.
Other questions?
My only question is on G, the new town hall server and equipment.
This was multi-part I'm trying to answer it as concise as I can, but to give the background, no offense to the rest of the council, but you and Felina are more the IT folks. But basically, I'm sorry, Council Lady Harris, are more the IT folks. But when we started with COVID and it forced us to go to public audio and things of that nature, as most of the veteran council can tell you, it was almost 1.5 years before we could have a meeting that worked and YouTube worked the way it was supposed to. Every time we called IT, we'd find a new switch in this wall or a switch in that roof, and it's like we couldn't get a concise answer in what's happening. We learned that we had software that was not legitimately installed the way that it should be. I'll use Microsoft Suite as an example. I'm not saying that was the one, I'm just using it as an example, to where it would be on 2 or 3 people's computer, but then somebody just put it on another one and it's not officially licensed for that. Certain employees needed different software because of their professions. Everybody didn't need it, but 1 or 2 people may need it. Especially, and I'll use Emily as an example, she does most of the all the marketing and most of the strategizing when it comes to making flyers, making artwork and things of that nature, but yet she didn't have the software on her computer that allowed her to do that. And what was put on the computer, not by her, but by the previous IT people, was bits and pieces. And it never worked the way it was supposed to. So in upgrading the IT, we switched IT department contractors, and in doing that, we learned, if you all remember Veteran Council's, our Spectrum account hadn't been visited in numerous years. Well, we was paying almost twice as much as we should. They come and upgraded our switches and said, oh my God, this stuff, they used that 10 years ago. You need these faster, better things. Well, we have our IT room is a closet that for you IT people, if you walked in there, you'd be, what in the heck happened here? And why do they have all these wires running? Because that's not the way a modern server room is supposed to be. There should be air, there should be modernized equipment. And in talking to our IT contractor, as we also talk with COVID, our protector for fraud and the hostage stuff that happens throughout the state. We learned that a lot of that equipment was so antiquated. You may have a brand new piece, well, it's not working properly because these pieces over here are so old. So to get that IT server room up to date with modern equipment and get rid of about a third of the stuff that's just really obsolete, but because it had to be used to piecemeal so that some of the newer equipment that was purchased 4 years ago would work, we're having to do a clean sweep. Chief, did I explain that close to right, or is there something you want to add to that? Because you've been
Yeah.
hand in hand with
A
this.
lot of the servers are very outdated. If you know about IT, it's virtual network upon virtual network upon virtual network. And if one of those goes down, especially, then it could be very difficult to regain access. So then on top of that, you have, for as fast as IT advances, it would be considered ancient technology in there. We have times now that if the generator kicks on because there's a glitch, server goes down 3 in the morning, we're having to get the IT people up here. So I guess we're pretty behind. It's, for everybody, it's not just the police, it's the entire town hall server.
And one part I will add to that, hearing him speak made me also remember is storage of data. We are now going to some cloud-based storage as a backup also, so that if we did have worst case scenario, a fire here and our equipment get destroyed, then we've got a place of recouping that we did not have that ability before. But because of the age of our equipment, we couldn't go to cloud-based storage because all of it didn't support that.
So a couple questions.
Sure.
So one is, I think I heard you say, there will be some redundancies there so that you can have access without having to call someone to come in.
Yes, right now, on a lot of our computers, I know from the police department side, like even in the car, they can remote access. But there's some limitations because of how old the technology is, and because of just the way it is, they actually have to physically come up here and reset things, or we've got our battery backups apparently are all so old, they have no charge.
As a matter of fact, most of our computers do not have a battery backup.
Our camera system for the security cameras and stuff around town hall is currently not functioning because of some issues with the server.
All right, I think we said enough.
So the other piece of that is, that concerns me, but the other piece of that is, from a cybersecurity perspective, and I know Ron and I have talked about this, but there are criminals out there that want to come in and take over your system. There's some municipalities, some pretty close to us, who've had their systems shut down. Is this part of that conversation as well, or no? Okay.
It's part of the conversation, but not in this price. I think if I recall correctly, our contract with COVID is about half that annually. And the chief and I and Lou met with them today. For whatever reasons, our IT has been slow to embrace the fact that you all and I said this is what we're gonna do for ultimate protection. A lot of folks think, hey, I can go buy such and such software and it gives you almost as good a protection. Well, almost is why several municipalities have had to pay millions, because it was not as good. And COVID does have a plan in place to give us the ultimate cyber protection, and part of that will be regular testing to make sure our employees are compliant. For example, they may send an email that says, hey, you've won a lottery. And if an employee opens that, then they automatically are shifted to, before you can use your computer, you need to take this test, because you should not have done that.
So that communication will be happening with the more updated systems.
Within 30 days, it should be, and we ask, changing from the technology to the new, is it gonna burp? And they said it creates more work on their end, but that's part of our contract. Our time frame for this to be installed, and talking to the chief earlier today, is supposed to be in February for that server room to be, and it won't be a one-day process. They'll have to take certain things off to make sure that nothing's lost before they bring a new piece online. But it should be completed in February, and our cybersecurity is up and running already.
This should help though,
Yes,
help Corvid do their job in the future.
lots better too,
Yes.
which I think is the simple answer he was looking for.
Right.
Question, you mentioned
I think they
about,
probably get rid of their XP machine once we get this.
Thank you.
the problem with the battery backups you mentioned on some of our computer systems. Is that being addressed or has been addressed?
It is being addressed.
Is
yes,
being
sir.
addressed?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Other questions on the budget amendments?
Mhm.
Okay. All right.
All right, Justin, you want to explain this contract
Yes, sir. So
for item number 7?
I'm sure you're all aware that, standards in the government, they never take anything away that you have to do anymore, they just keep adding to stuff. So GASB 87 and 96, it was in your packet, I don't know if you had a chance to read my little summary there. But basically, 87 was kind of annoying, but it wasn't too bad because it's for our town. Some people have a lot of things, but our town basically was just come down to our copier leases, kind of is what that affected. And those had to be recorded on our financials. Now, GASB 96 that is going to be implemented for fiscal year 23, that's going to be a little bit more in depth because it gets into all these cloud-based software type issues. So any contract that we have for software such as Microsoft Office, Zoom, G Suite, our financial software we use to record, our water bills and our billing and all that, that's going to have to be recorded as the present value of the contract. So basically, we'll have to backdate it depending on how long the contract is. We have to go through each contract to see if it even applies for GASB 96. So without going too far into the weeds, it's kind of complex. It's simple on the surface, but financial side of it, how you have to present it in your financials, in your yearly audit can be very complex. So Debt Book is a third party that most of the state is using. I would venture to say, I don't want to put a percentage on it, but I would say 75–80% of the state's probably using Debt Book. And they're used all across the country because basically once this stuff came out, Debt Book at all these financial conferences and everything, they've been there as a vendor to present and show, exactly what they do. So basically, if we entered into this contract with Debt Book, I would just send them what we have. They would do it. We would talk a little bit about it. They'd make sure they're understanding what we have. They would run the numbers. They would record the entries, and our financials would be in compliance. Now, if we don't do it, I have to do it. And it's not that I don't want to do it, but I'm not a GASB 96 expert. I might become one, maybe. But for our size, their contract price would be $8,000 annually. And besides that, they, with their name Debt Book, they have all kinds of little cool features on their portal that we can enter our, our loan payments and forecast debt. And, talking about a new town hall, we could, start looking at numbers there. So it's just got a lot of cool features on it, just besides the actual 87 or 96 that we would use them for. But I would like it very much so if we could use them, but that's up to you guys.
So, quick question, because you raised another point. When you say we would send them the information, what exactly would we be sharing with them?
Just stuff that, okay, we've got 20 computers here that's got Microsoft Office on it. here's our contract with, you know, our financial, software company, Harris, just things like that.
So, I guess part of my second question is really around, do we have a contract management system that houses all of our contracts? We know what contracts we actually have.
We started when I asked Emily to step away from her current position and go into HR. We started collecting all the contracts. We are close to having that system done, but it is not complete or accurate as far as all the things. But she started collecting and had done a wonderful job in collecting everything that we knew that existed. And also per you all's request, because of the one issue with whoever the camera people were, we had certain people signing contracts, and that's policy that it can't just be done that way anymore. But yes, we're close, but to answer you honestly, not at this point. Can I say here it is?
Other questions regarding that book?
Is this, Justin, is this something you're asking for now, or is this something that's gonna be in the new budget?
Now, both. To answer your question, now, because if you guys approve it, then I will actually have a meeting with him next week to tell him yay or nay that
Okay.
council will either approve or disapprove.
And how long do we have to sign a contract for with these people?
It's just annually.
Just annually? Okay.
Yes, sir.
You know, I like the fact that, it's, as you say, it's not only dealing with what you need here to cover these two, you know, 87, 96, but also some other things you use it for as well,
Yeah.
to keep tabs with. So on our debt and forecasting and so forth, I like that. You know, I have no problem with it. I think you need it. We need to give you the tools to do right, and you're right, there's no need to, you know, try to make an expert out of you. When we, you know, for $8,000, we can get it done and get it done, we know correctly, people who have experience and years of it, and they don't have to have that learning curve and so forth. And,
Correct.
you know, that may take you away from other things that you are better at, so to speak, finance officer, that, you know, you could do much better at if you're given more time to do those things you're better at.
Correct.
So, you know, I'm fine with it myself.
I don't know, I bet he could get it done for less than 8. Man, I for one am confident in our financial
And
director.
his hair's gonna be gray like President Obama's. If he, I was just in a board of directors
Join me.
meeting on Friday, and they were just talking about this.
Were they really?
Yes, and, actually, some of them are using, that book already. I just sent a message to that same group to see if anybody else was using it, but, they are using it. One of the guys is not using it, he's trying to do it on his own,
Oh, yeah.
and he's losing hair,
Yeah, my,
so.
yeah, my
I've got
contacts,
that part covered.
my contacts I know and reference often, I would ask them how they're handling, you know, 87 or whatever. Oh, debt book. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
You're no help.
yeah,
And-
right.
and seriously,
But I was just gonna say, I'm in agreement with person.
I mean, I think the cool stuff, as you said, is, you know, icing on the cake, but like to hear that we don't really have a protocol for keeping these things, and it's inexcusable. You know, so, but not only that, but just to take it, I mean, to put it in a third party, I mean, there's risk you take with doing that, but I think eliminating any bias when it comes to these things is a step in the right direction. And, you know, like I said, one day it's not gonna be a 6 up here, you know, so I think this is great.
Is this something, Mr. Mayor, that we can make a motion right now,
think it's
pass, or we
consent,
need
right?
to do this Thursday night?
Well, it's under consent, so we don't really have to address it again unless somebody else has an issue with it between now and then, so.
Don't me, I clearly don't know when votes need to be done.
Any other questions from the old or Justin? If we go to section 3, presentation of the town budget. Justin, is there anything you wish to discuss there?
No, I just wanna, mention that, so it's waiting on LGC approval, you know, that it takes them time to approve it. There shouldn't be any issues there, so they're presenting, the copy they're presenting will say draft on it, but there's nothing, none of the numbers will change, as long as the LGC approves it, which hopefully should be in the near future, because I believe they sent it to them sometime around Christmas, or maybe even before that, so just waiting on the LGC's approval there for the audit.
And there's a couple things there, in the budget. One, they slapped Justin's hand for, what was it?
So there was two findings. One of them I will take full responsibility for, and the other is just from years past. But my finding was for, I believe it was the police, I can't remember now. We had two funds that they were expended. Was it police department and admin maybe? So basically, for our last payroll that was paid out, the check date was for July.
It's when we requested the budget amendment.
Correct. So at the end of each year, you know, we do a huge budget year amendment to clean up and to basically say, okay, these funds are gonna need this, we've got this revenue. So the money was sitting there. I just didn't anticipate the last payroll, all of that last payroll that was paid in July was for fiscal year 22, except for one day. So,
21, 22.
yes. So by not accruing that payroll on my end, that is why those departments were over their budgets, because of that last payroll. That was paid July the 5th or 6th, but it was actually for fiscal year 22 instead of 23, so that was my fault.
And again, that's one of those simple, money was where it was supposed to be. It was the accounting of when he did the budget amendment that missed. And the other one was we had a line item that identified funds that was never reconciled.
Yeah,
and again, that was not on our current staff. It was just something that was previously done that they recommended not be done again.
I also noticed, they kind of, if I read it correctly, made a comment about receiving the budget late from the local government commission. You know, there was
The audit
finding
report,
from the, you know, from last year.
correct.
Last year, our folks that took, you know,
Yes.
forever and a day.
Yes.
Even with the letter that that was sent to them from the auditors, it still evidently went as a black mark against the town, I presume,
Correct.
based on what I read.
Yes, anytime the audit's not submitted to the LGC by December 1, they'll, you know, issue it's not, I guess it is a finding, but it's basically, you know, just a memo like, here's, why is your audit late, and so, yeah.
I think we know why, right?
Yeah, we know why, but
I will add to that for the public's knowledge. We all in the room know what's happening, but the public's like, hey, why was it late? Well, again, that was an accounting firm that simply had some turmoil inside, and we were the victim of that, and it took them numerous months afterward to reconciliate it and get us a report. So that was not the town or staff's doing. In this new one, and the mayor, through the League of Municipalities, has voiced a couple times, there are less and less because, as Justin said, the rules are ever changing. And because of that, and just because of like the firm that we used, several other municipalities were in the same boat. These firms are like, you know, I got enough business, I don't need to do government accounting no more. So today, it's like 20% of the accounting firms to do auditing for government that there was 6 years ago. That is causing hardships all across the state of North Carolina, and that's why the cost of an audit now is double what it used to be. And then, as we discussed, you really should consider changing audit firms every 3 years just for transparency's sakes, But because there's so few that's doing it, that makes it even worse for us to do going in the future. And that issue is supposed to be addressed legislatively and with the North Carolina treasurer to see what relief we towns can have. And again, even in this report, not filed by December 1st, but it was not we didn't do anything to prohibit that. We provided all the information as we were requested to in a timely manner. But this being the first year, not only did they do this current year's audit, but they had to go back and make sure the last audits were in compliance so that they could start fresh with this. And of course, they found several errors. Imagine that. So that had to be done as well.
But that was my, even though they had a letter from the firm, the auditing firm, they still put that on paper. And, John Q. Public sees it, and they may not know the story behind the story.
Right.
And that makes us, or, all of us, gives us the black eye. And that kind of riled me there, that there's a reason for that. So why do you still put that out there in black and white on a piece of paper, as far as your auditing, from local government commission? Why do you still have to put that there when you know this vision and it was not something that we could help? It is what it is perhaps, but still and yet, I want the public to know that, this was not, indifference on our part. Willy-nilly, we'll get it when we get it, and, we got our hands slapped. I mean, that's not the situation here.
And how late were we on the budget? Or no, sorry, not the
Auditing report.
the audit, how far behind?
Almost 3 months.
Yeah, it's presented in April.
Yeah, 4 months. Well, 5.
Yeah.
All right. And will somebody from the firm be here?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Number 9 will be recognition of the Troutman Rotary Club for their sponsorship. Roman numeral 4, ABC quarterly report. I'll just go ahead and forewarn you, it's not gonna be those astronomical achieving percentage increases as they have been, but they are still doing fine. Number 5, Roman numeral 5. I had spoke with the council member Harris in reference to this, and going to Eddie's analogy of squeeze, I did for some ball fields to see if they would incorporate that as part of their package in coming to the town. The initial comments was, hey, we're all on board, but again, and everybody doing their due diligence, the property that would be in question to use for sports fields or ball fields will be under some power lines. And talking with Lynn, she spoke with one of those folks today. There is conversation that Duke Power may choose to bury those lines, which could then change what you can and can't use that particular area for. And they are simply waiting to find out from Duke Power what, if anything's allowed, whether it be soccer fields, ball fields, or a combination of the two. And because of that, and because they would like to give you all a presentation showing as much willingness to work with council and have the answers in firm answers instead of guesstimating, they have asked for another continuance. So on Thursday, before the meeting, we can simply ask for an adjustment to the agenda and continue item 5, or wait till it gets there, Roman numeral 5, and ask for a continuance. You all have any questions about that?
I would ask if we're gonna do it, we do it at the time of old business, just to keep it on the agenda the way it is. So, if everybody's good with that. So, point of clarification, where they're asking to put the ball fields or whatever recreation is, would be power lines overhead.
Currently, they're overhead power lines, and Duke Power has an easement there. And then, of course, Councilman Harris can speak for himself, but in looking at the plan and the proposed area of what they had a lot of what appears to be on the surface, natural or green space, and it really did not, in my opinion, define, hey, this is why this is. Also, as a little caveat, we go back to a few years ago, there was property on Stillwater Road annexed into our town limits. This was the same scenario there, and instead of them building or doing anything for our benefit, they just donated the land to us at some point in time so that we could have a pocket park out there, even if it was just a simple walking trail. It's still not a bad idea. However, in agreement with Councilman Harris, if these folks, while they're moving all this dirt and everything else, will go ahead and make it ball fields, that's why it come up. But yes, currently it's overhead. There is discussions that it may go underground.
So even if it doesn't, just FYI, I know Concord has a beautiful park that has overhead power lines on it. So, I know when my son was small playing soccer, it was always kind of that little bit uneasy concern, but again, it's a beautiful park, and I don't think anybody ever complained about it. But if you ever want to go check it out, it's just on the edge of Cabarrus County. But again, they've got lakes and walking trails and ball fields, a whole 9 yards. So, but just FYI.
I'll give my son-in-law credit for that idea about ball fields. Is, he coached for a long time here, and all of you had younger kids, know that everybody was traveling so far to play baseball. I mean, Jennings Park and other places, and it's like, if we're getting all these housing, why can't it get added to ball fields, especially out that area, because there's so much property, housing already there. We just need some ball fields. And of course, even my grandchildren are kind of getting on the other end of it now. He said, talk to Duck. He said, Duck would know how bad this is. We're trying to get ball fields. So I called him, this is for my Christmas dinner I got hold of Duck, and he said, I never thought about that, but let me give him a call. And so
So this would be available to the public then?
that's what it's for, yeah,
That is the intent, and I will add the caveat to that without getting into their presentation, kind of like what was with Wakefield. I certainly think we need more facilities, but once we do, that then has a trickle effect. We need more employees, we need more equipment or utilize the equipment.
Was that something they would give to the town, they would develop it and then give it to the town?
I can't answer that for them, but that is my presumption, yes. For it to be truly public access, it would need to be that way. It would need to be donated to us and not part of their HOA, similar to the discussion we had about some walking trails. If they keep it, it's HOA. If it's turned over to us, then it's our expense and maintenance and all that goes with it.
But it's opening the public and providing more facilities for the public.
That's what I expressed to them, is we would like it to be a public used sports, whether it's soccer, ball, or baseball, softball, or both. And again, the walking trail on the outside of that as well, because a lot of parents even here, when they drop their kids off to play, they are using the concrete that was fixed last year as walking trails, because they're close enough to Johnny or Susie and they're getting their exercise on.
Okay.
All right, Roman numeral 6, item 12, Mountain States Investments. This is the one we had spoke to last month, that Lynn did research in to make sure that the project would be in compliance if it was in our town and they were doing a fresh application. It is. Lynn, is there anything you'd like to add to that one?
Just the only outstanding item is that they will have to go before the design review board. Once it's annexed and approved, we'll make sure that happens. We've already had those discussions with them, and they understand that we'll be looking for that.
Okay. Any questions on 12 or 13? And then number 14, consider reappointments or appointments to committees. ABC Board is Wes Edmiston and Kim Cavan. Their terms expire Thursday, and both are willing to continue serving. And without me saying more, You all know what those numbers are in supervision. Kim is the latest addition to that board, but it's up to you all, but, they're up for reappointments. And also on Design Review Board, Mark Michelle, his term actually expires Wednesday. I'm sorry, today. But his term is up, but he is interested in being reappointed back to the Design Review Board. I'll be happy to answer any questions of those three. That's
Any
it.
questions? Okay. All right. That's it. And then we'll follow along our agenda to our next item, which is proposed noise ordinance. Mr. Wyatt?
You have all
Take them around, this one.
Mhm.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, it's too late now. You had your chance, I'm gone now.
Can I get one? All right.
It's on consent. You skipped it. You know what, don't forget.
Can I back up for you all?
Yes.
Even though Emily left, I'm in trouble. On the consent agenda, you all have it in your packet. Number 5, approval of the town and Troutman Parks and Rec event schedule. Did you all have any questions about any of those?
Like a busy year.
She knows a very busy year, but it's also a recipe book. Oh, she's still here.
I forgot my part.
It's a recipe book that she keeps that makes all of those happen. Somebody we was meeting with last week, I expressed if it wasn't for her recipe book, none of these would work. But she is there, and Mr. Reed has had to come up here because I skipped that part, and I apologize, Reed. But if she's there, if you all have any questions about any of those, or is there anything in particular that
The
you?
Field of Honor, I did want to talk to them about that. Do you want to explain that, or?
Oh,
Either one. We met with the Lake Norman Exchange Club, the evening club. They were interested in supporting the town on an event. They had initially proposed, you all are familiar with what the YMCA does, and we do the Field of Flags for July 4th. They had initially proposed doing that in Troutman, and we suggested maybe doing it the week of Memorial Day here. And instead of doing a field of flags in the park, a field of honor along our greenway. So you could walk the greenway, and find your family member that you'd honored, and making it last a week rather than, just a few days. So that was one thing that I did want to run by you.
And to add to that, it came up in discussion, instead of it just being Veterans Memorial, that if we try around the third week, that we also include, because of Law Enforcement Memorial Week being May 15th, that we do a first responder component to it as well. So it would recognize the veterans and all those first responders, whether they be fire, EMS, or police, that they would like to honor or memorialize by the flag. And that's where we had the recipe discussion, is that we even offered how to number the flags and list them so that people can find them afterwards. But of course, as you all know with our town ordinance, we can't do things on the greenway like that unless you all approve that they be up there. But I absolutely appreciate the Evening Exchange Club for wanting to do something in Troutman, one, and two, it's a time crunch issue that we get this pulled off. Again, following the recipe book, it don't work for recipes less than 60 days.
So Emily, you're proposing that from a community perspective, they will contact you?
No, they wanted to handle registration.
Oh, they're gonna do it all?
Yep, they're
Okay.
gonna handle it all. We are, probably gonna serve as just maybe just an information hub, answering questions, that kind of thing. I did offer some suggestions on cataloging, on how to, run the, organization of the flags, how to handle her registration, those kind of things, but they were willing to bring the volunteers and the registration and then the whole 9 yards. We're gonna meet a couple more times, but, we're hopeful that they will be able to pull off the entirety of the event. There were a couple ideas that they had that we had to rein them back in, because we know how our citizenry will respond and the questions that they have and the ways that they need information and the ways that they respond to things in the way of, communications, but maybe we end up working together. I'm not sure. We haven't got that part ironed out, but we did know that we wanted to talk to you all about how you felt about the event being on Memorial Weekend and then along our greenway. We did talk about solar lights, so that the flags would still be visible in the evening time. I think that was it in the way of
I would just like
details.
to, as you all can see by that list, this one person, full-time employee department is one of the busiest, if not the busiest that we have. So, in our premature discussions with the club, we would love to facilitate, but it's really not something that staff-wise, and we actually have a couple things that we need to get off our plates, as that's not what towns do. And so that we can concentrate on more of the events that are there. But while we certainly were willing to help, we're limited on how much time, even with Emily herself, or if people start calling in wanting a flag, it's way too much early on.
That was part of my question.
Yes.
Yeah,
I was
we were
asking.
careful to say, make sure it doesn't land on the ladies at front, so,
Okay, all right.
they have to be real clear about the communications and registration process.
What about the proceeds? Are they going to the evening club, or are they gonna go to the town of
The
Troutman?
evening club,
Evening club,
The evening club,
yes,
yes, sir.
total, so we get nothing out of it.
correct.
Service to the community, yeah, so nothing to, which would be why they're handling,
How does it work with Mooresville? The club gets everything?
No, the YMCA, because they host it there, they donate some to the Y.
We'll be hosting it on Greenway. And we're gonna get nothing?
We didn't cover that point to say what's in it for us, other than community service, but because they have approached us wanting to participate, not only with this event, but other events, and volunteering, without speaking for them, I certainly feel like they want to befriend Troutman, and Troutman would like to befriend the organization such as we have the others. But we did not discuss a percentage or a project or anything else.
And I'm more comfortable with it if we're not we're not investing labor.
True,
Significant
I
labor
totally
in it.
agree with that,
I
but
would say, we also, not totally disconnected, but, the library puts stuff on the Greenway. Again, it's just certain things that we allow on the Greenway. I would feel comfortable with this.
At this point, Emily and I discussed it, a sidebar, but I certainly feel like this is one of those things that people will, once the first one happens, it will only grow and grow and grow. And it certainly benefits us, in being patriotic and having the theme that there's more value in that than if they said, here's $500.
Well, I could also see how it's a tremendous impact on the day-to-day of the Y. They're gonna lose their field, right? We won't lose
the Greenway,
our
no.
Greenway. We don't really have to make any compromise.
Very good
at
point.
all.
Very good.
Where they're saying, okay, we've got no leagues, nothing can happen on this day because this group's
For a
coming in.
whole
I
week.
could see,
For a whole
right, I
week.
could see where the palm would itch in that scenario.
Yeah, and we did talk about the, impact it would have on mowing, if we make sure that it corresponds with that, it doesn't last any longer than a week, so we don't have grass growing up between flags, and how to make them weatherproof, the tagging and that kind of thing, so we handled all that, but, if it were to happen in our park, can't drill the poles down too deep because of our irrigation system, but we don't have that problem along the Greenway, so, that was just.
And any future working arrangements for future events, then would still have to come back to the council for us to approve, right?
The Greenway, as you say, the Greenway is great for walking, but it's up there for other purposes that benefit the town. And this benefits the town and that we're showing patriotism, serving, I think providing a service of a local organization. I say local, out of Mooresville, but still and yet that people can participate in here. The only two things I would have would be, number one, that, they run everything by you, obviously, they just don't on their own, they run everything that's approved by you, the town manager, and so forth. The second one just slipped my mind all of a sudden now.
Maybe insurance?
Excuse me?
Insurance, maybe.
That's under us.
Yeah, that would remain with us, yeah, well.
We,
Okay.
like I say, I think it would benefit us as far as a new project goes that would clearly go into an annual tradition, kind of like our Independence Day celebration. We're the only town that done that until this year somebody decided to copy us. So it works out.
Right.
Quick question, I see adult softball, adult kickball, have we thought about adult volleyball?
We had the volleyball tournaments, and Carrie was wanting to bring in, Officer Baker, was wanting to do a winter volleyball tournament, Jolly Ball. So, I don't have that on there, but that is something that he's wanting to do, so, he had talked about doing it last year, and we ran out of time, but I didn't put it because he wasn't for sure. That is something he is wanting to do.
And you're just gonna skip over Troutman's Got Talent?
Troutman's got
Oh, I
talent.
started that one last night. I was like, yes, I love it, I can't wait.
Had a couple people, expressed interest in us having a, community talent show, so, got that one on there. Party in the Parks are back. I know Eddie's excited about that. National Bike Safety Month, Andrew's gonna lead that from our planning department's gonna lead a family bike event for us. The Spring Craft Show that we're having, that's our annual, fall event that we've had. We just shifted it to, spring, trying to disperse some workload out of November and December. It's a little hefty right there, which is also why we pushed the Jingle Run back a week.
Another thing was, I'm sorry, everything would obviously be run by you folks prior to the Exchange Club just going out and doing whatever. You folks would approve the general plan and so forth. But also, that nothing falls back on the town, that this is their responsibility. And as you say, nothing falls on you, nothing falls on the ladies up front, or our public works. It's all handled by them.
That's the plan. Of course,
we-
we wouldn't.
We
let
provide the real
anything-
estate, they do everything else.
Right. We wouldn't let anything be an embarrassment to the town.
Sure.
If they have good intentions, but it doesn't, come off the way they would hope that it would, we of course would pick up the slack so that it's not an embarrassment to the town. We wouldn't let flags fall over or, something not look the way it's supposed to or be appropriate along the Greenway. We would pick up the slack in the meantime, but next year have a better plan going forward. So, the plan is for us to not be carrying any workload, but the caveat to that is we would not let anything be an embarrassment to the
Right,
town.
right.
Or
You
be
live, you
disrespectful.
learn, and you're right, nothing's 100% certain,
That's
but
right.
at least that's the understanding with them, that, you know, that it's their responsibility.
Yes, yes, sir. And we were clear about that when we met with them, and, they don't know what their registration process will be right yet, but, that was just a preliminary meeting. But we have been wanting to do something for Memorial Day, for years we've talked about it, but for them to reach out and want to do something was nice to have somebody want to take something off your plate instead of put something on. So we were, appreciative of that. So just wanted to get some feedback on that, but thank you for circling back to that item.
Thank you for hanging out a few minutes more.
Thank
Tell
you.
Reed I owe him
And
dinner.
gentlemen.
I'm sure he would have rather been somewhere else other than stay here. For the noise ordinances, this, Lynn and Chief, they come up with these were proposed back in August. I tried to have a committee meeting. This is what?
That goes with that too.
And we couldn't, the one thing before we delve into it that I would just like to say, and Chief Watson may or may not wanna kick in also, I do think we need a different noise ordinance, but this one here, is recommended, up to you all for approval. Some of our citizens don't always understand what ordinances mean or what the laws mean. So even once we put it in here, because they hear a fire truck at 1 o'clock in the morning, we're not gonna go and see if it was a noise ordinance violation. But if a business, for example, is an existing business functioning as it's supposed to, that does not mean that now that we pass a noise ordinance, all of a sudden they're in violation, or it's something that we need to go out and enforce because they live next to it. And you've got some that think, well, if you go and charge them and they don't cut it down, then you can arrest them, and that's also not the case. So while we hope the noise ordinance will allow law enforcement to have better teeth when it comes to things, I will just say, recently, for example, I was sitting on my front porch, but the Chickadee venue had a DJ and music playing at their place. It's 9:30 at night, I'm sitting on my porch and I can hear it plain as day. So people have more sensitive ears than others. That's one of the reasons why this, what do you call that device, the audible?
The decibel meter.
That's why that's in there. So I'm a little bit fearful that if you all decide, hey, yes, let's go with it, all of a sudden they're gonna say our police is not doing something right just because they hear a noise. That still don't make it a violation, is all I'm trying to say with all that.
Well, I agree, the less laws, the better. I mean, you know, but this is something that unfortunately, the irresponsible act of a few, be they individuals or a business, and to my knowledge, a business has not been, but we do have some, a few people in town that unfortunately, are not, as responsible as they should be when it comes to how they treat their neighbors and things of that sort, that we have to pass this, and no, I certainly hope that it's not abused, and as the town manager said, simply because somebody is awakened by a fire truck, and all of a sudden they think they can use this, even though it has exceptions in there,
Right.
and that sort of thing. But, you know, we have to do something, we're gonna have to do something about individuals, be they a business or an individual, that are irresponsible and are, you know, you're exactly right. You know, I can get out in my backyard and I can, you know, when they were doing work over there on Walmart, you know, we were getting complaints about that. Well, I could hear it, but I mean, you know, I knew it was temporary and so forth, and I'm a live and let live type person, but some folks are not. But getting back to this, we've got to have something that we can fall back on when we do have people who are highly irresponsible, that we can fall back on and go to these irresponsible people and say, you know, you're not following this, if you don't, you're gonna be fined. You know, hopefully that'll do it. Address that issue to, you know, we don't end up in court where we have to get an injunction, anything of that nature, but at least we can use this to get the message across that it's not gonna be tolerated and you just can't continue your bad actions.
So I was reading in here, I'm glad that you mentioned that, Ron, about businesses that are already, when I was out
Yeah.
visiting one of the citizens, she was telling me that Walmart has a loud sound that plays, I guess it's for them to either change shifts or do something. So if this is in place, it says it's, I can't find where it is, that if it's already existing, it won't be something that they can call in about. Cause I could foresee them calling in about, the Walmart doing, making all that noise every single night. 'Cause she did tell me that she hears that like every night or whenever they do the shifts or whatever.
Well, I know like, our neighborhood, you can hear the bell, you know, it's auto programmed for the elementary school.
Oh, yeah, I can hear it too,
You
yeah.
know, and I think, you know, if the officers get a noise complaint or something, it's not, you know, it's gonna be something that has to be sustained, because first off, we're gonna have to have the officer get there, be able to, you know, the noise be continuing, to be able to measure it with the decibel reader. You know, which would help, because right now the officers are kinda like, they think like they may hear a noise, and it's totally up to the officer that's sitting there saying, well, you know, hey, this isn't a disturbing noise, but the neighbor is saying, well, we dealt with it with the apartments where they were saying, well, I hear this noise, it was just normal living in an apartment, but it wasn't music. And the officer's like, hey, this really isn't violating our ordinance as we have it now, and the person was very unhappy with it. But it would help if we have, hey, look, you know, here's what our ordinance says, it's not meeting that. Kind of they're not having to sit and try and interpret and based off, well, this person says this, and, you know, I've seen, I came from in 12 years of working at college town, so noise complaints was a big deal. You know, every night when a party calls, you know, where you have 300 people and a lot of music blaring. It was easy, hey, this is obviously, you know, a violation of our noise ordinance, but you sometimes now, it's iffy. We have situations where we know, yes, these are the violations. But it would also allow us to be able to bring people into compliance through a warning and be like, okay, hey, now you're under the, you know, the requirement of the decibel meter, and without having to go charging, you know, on citations.
So just so that I'm clear, we've got a couple of options. It looks like that you're suggesting for council. Is there one of these that, at least in the interim, that you would say, hey, we could just go with this one and move forward? Or is this, again, something that we need to start from scratch?
This is not the ordinance.
This is, yeah, I got a different one
Yeah.
from Lynn, yeah, I can't print it off.
Yeah,
It
this
has
is,
10, 19, and 10,
the one with
20.
this print, this is not the ordinance that,
Yeah, what I got, Lynn's emailed to me that's, goes back to August the 8th agenda briefing, and she emailed, I guess it was handed out back at that time. You know, it's obviously informal, but it's a starting point for discussion.
That's the only thing I found when I searched my computer, so I thought that was the changes that were made, that somebody had
you
made.
know, Lynn had put one out, it had a specific, it was broken down to commercial,
Correct, yeah.
residential, and time frames.
Yeah, sound
Okay, that
application
was-
from me.
With
The
maximum decibel readings,
Yeah.
and it specified is where the officer would take the reading from.
You have it there?
yeah.
You want me to make copies for you
That's
of that?
That was both my questions, was,
Yeah,
I don't see any time constraints,
Right.
and I don't see
Yeah.
anything about the decibel meter or the
Yeah,
potential value.
the readings were higher day and night for a commercial area.
I've got that, but I don't have where the officer has to start to do those readings. Now, it does refer to the perimeter of the property and
It
so
says,
forth.
I don't have the copy of it.
She's gonna make copies of
She's
it.
gonna go make it.
I know that it was right at the edge of the property, or
Right, yeah,
50 feet,
yeah.
I believe.
Right,
Yeah, it said, yeah, you
Yeah,
go off
but-
to the other property of the complainer.
yeah.
Yeah.
And see what it is there. Yeah, I
So,
remember
so
going around that
the
meeting.
current policy in place, your question is, do we need to make some changes to that policy in order to?
I believe so, yes, sir.
And I can say that from where I came before, there was, and I don't know the exact case, it was either the North Carolina Court of Appeals or the North Carolina Supreme Court. It was a very similar ordinance,
To our current,
and it was ruled unconstitutional because of, what it resulted from was businesses. There was a downtown business district, a restaurant had music, well, somebody in a residential area, like he was saying, could hear it. Well, the complaints were over and over, so the officers were told, hey, you've got to charge them.
Yeah.
Well, the person appealed it, and they found that, it wasn't taken into account that this is a business district where, noise is allowed. And, just because of geography and, echoing through buildings and stuff, that, it didn't all of a sudden make that now in violation. So that it became had to go start using decibel readings.
And echoing what the chief said in a little different context, with where I live and where this venue is, you would think there's no way he can hear that, I'll tell you, plain as day. But it is a licensed, allowed to be there place, and it was not. Once I went inside and closed the door, I couldn't hear anything. But sitting on the porch, even then, it would not be a violation of an option I hope you will decide to adopt. It still would not be a violation. But that's the part that I'm wanting to point out. Some citizens are extreme in what they think is loud versus what others. That's why it needs to have the decibel reading.
Right.
Even if I'm listening to a DJ on my front porch, they may not very well be breaking the law just because I can hear them.
And
I
this,
know I'm hard to hear, but still.
South Iredale will have a real problem come
That's
football time.
Exactly right.
and that's probably what I'm asking for the update. I mean, obviously, as you say, it's not gonna be, subjective or objective, whichever
Yeah, and
the term
we don't
is.
like-
It's not gonna be at the officer's discretion. Yeah, I've got a lot of complaints. Yeah, I agree with you. It sounds, they're gonna have to have something that, as you say, can stand up in court. This is the reading, it's at the property line. This is at the reading, or the reading of the decibel meter. And, you go from that. And obviously, a healthy dose of reasonableness.
Yes.
In there, common sense. Is what, and our current, it has no teeth to it, in my opinion. It has good suggestions, but it has no teeth to it.
And it is very up to the interpretation of the officer.
Exactly.
It's not, and which, each one that responds is gonna be different.
Yeah, yeah.
So then that's where we end up with people saying, well, they came out here yesterday, and then they came out another, the next day, and,
Yeah.
and, it also has to, you have to take into account, like you said, South Iredale, it's a football stadium, there's going to be noise. I mean, it's been there, I can't say we've never had any complaints from it. As overall, as a town, we have very few noise complaints. The most recent noise complaint issue that has been repetitive is, the situation on Church Street.
Yeah,
Has been.
yeah. Exactly, that's one, when you've got somebody that is amplifying noise to the point that, in the house, television going, doors closed, winter, cold, and your windows are rattling, and you can hear it, and you're not necessarily next door either, as the neighbors down there, and even in my neighborhood. And I'm just using that as one example, because I know there are others, but that's one that, I'm personally close to. But that's obviously led to why this is being rehashed, even though we discussed it back in the summer. Those are the people that I'm talking about, not the others where, again, as I say, healthy dose of reasonableness and common sense needs to be applied to this as well, for those people who have too sensitive of ears.
Now,
Yeah, I have a question for Ron, and then I have a question for the chief, so I'm going to ask these both questions. Your example is a business that is playing DJ music, okay? From my conception, that is a county business, am I correct? That's not within our town. So how is it a town of Troutman thing?
We can't enforce.
Right, Iredale County Sheriff should be handling that. So that's, no disrespect, but that's a moot point. But my other question is, say the Walmart, okay, the distribution center, it is in our town. But a county resident now is calling 911. Iredale County sheriffs need to take care of that because a town of Troutman resident's not calling.
Some of it though is in where the noise is being generated from. Because the violation, the noise violation is actually being made in the city limits, so air ordinance.
Okay, so
would apply.
county residents then could call 911 and a town of Troutman officer then would address that problem.
If the
Because it's
problem is
coming
coming from
from
in the city, yes,
within the town limits
yes,
business.
yes, sir.
But as Doc brought up, that wouldn't be.
Yeah, it would be for the sheriff's office would have to go because we can't force air ordinance outside the city limits.
So that's gonna be another not problem, but, hey, I'm calling about the DJ, that's a county business.
Which when you call and tell where it's coming from, communications types in that address and they see the prompt on
Got-
who to
okay,
dispatch.
Gotcha.
Yeah, this is the one I emailed.
So that we can, so we're not spending all night just rehashing this. Sounds like Mr. Hinkle has it sounds like Mr. Hinkle has a couple of suggestions. And there's a couple of options that looks like was presented here. Prior to, we had a committee, that was gonna look at these. Did that committee ever meet or not? Okay. Mr. Hinkle, do you wanna lead a committee so that we can come back, maybe it's, next month with an actual proposed ordinance?
Sure.
To say, this is where we're gonna go, and I would suggest that, of course, you know, Ms. Hare and Chief Watson be part of that, but any other council member who wants to help, so that we can give some finality to this.
Exactly.
Oh, Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
this first paperwork that was passed out, I apologize, I'm not really certain where it originated. This here is
Is the current,
one option, it's not multiple.
okay.
And this here should cover everything, and we're more than happy to look at a committee, but staff has reviewed this one and is recommending this one,
Oh, okay.
but it's entirely,
And this is the one I read, this is the one I got from Lynn.
So are you
I read-
good with this one?
I am good with this one, and I have a few wordsmithings and a few questions, but overall, I'm good with this one.
Okay.
As to the details, I'm good with it. Again, just some details or wordsmithing details.
So,
This is what the staff is, we charge them to do.
Mhm.
so would it make sense then for, if we wanna pass this, on Thursday, if we wanna pass this on Thursday, do you wanna give with Ms. Hare on your wordsmithing, or is there something major
Well-
in here that we need to further explore?
I have, you know, the current problem I was speaking of with some neighbors over on Church Street, that seems to have, at least temporarily,
he's in jail.
yeah, ceased. So, at least from the standpoint of having some folks over there on my case, I've got that. So I have no problem with taking a month. I'll be glad to get with Lynn. In the meantime, anybody else, the same thing, can do so, and then seriously discuss, you know, what will be the decision, you know, up or down on it at February's meeting.
February, okay,
Yes.
all right. Good deal.
May I ask just one question, clarification? Who put this together?
Lynn and the chief.
And, Gary had sent us some. This is very similar to the ordinance just passed by state.
Right.
Okay. Because I had just grammatical things, not even really grammar, but like, just for instance, and just, maybe this is a question actually for Gary.
He has lawyers speak, I don't know if you want.
Right, no, that's why I'm asking, maybe that's what, I look at like, item 15. And it's just simply the first sentence, the operation of any garage, filling station, auto repair business, taxi business, plant, store, factory, or other place of business. Why doesn't it just say business? Again, I don't know if that's a legal thing. Why give all of those examples and then say, oh, or any other business?
My guess is, if this was, if another ordinance was used to write it, that's what the other ordinance said, is my guess.
Okay. But there's nothing I'm missing there, like, oh, no, if we structure it this way, then it, you know, then it means this, or, you know, because I just see, I would say, well, I don't have a garage, filling station, auto repairs, detective business, plant, store, factory. So what I don't know. Again, that's nitpicky stuff, but I mean, that's, if we're looking to kind of wordsmith
that's
before
what-
now and then,
exactly.
that's just kind of.
That's why I
figured I'd
said
make bring
take
it
a
up,
month.
Yeah, so what I would say then is that if any of you have any of those suggestions, then run those by Mr. Hinkle, and he will run it by
Sure.
Lynn we'll get it cleared up and, we'll go from there. So now,
Chief, do we currently have a meter right now?
Yeah, we just bought 4 of them.
Oh, okay.
So
Thank you.
that can ensure that there's.
No, that's,
One on each squad.
all I wanna know is if we had them.
And not trying to cut Lynn out of the mix, but being as it's gonna be a law enforcement function,
yeah,
go with the chief first, and
Okay.
then we'll include Gary, and Lynn both to make sure whatever recommendations you all have, let the chief work on the wording or get the questions, and then, once that's done, he will include Gary, myself, and Lynn, just so it, make sure that it goes in our UDO the way it should,
yeah, okay.
right? You
Thank
good
And
with
this
that?
will actually be in the code of ordinances.
Yes, code of
Yeah.
ordinances,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't know why I said UDO, it's Monday and I'm hungry.
Y'all need to start providing
Any jelly beans at all?
Mayor came third?
I brought cookies, so. might
You
well
keep
know.
them to yourself.
They're glued to the table right here, I apologize.
Yeah. All right, so get with Chief Watson and, again, anybody have any other changes run them by Mr. Hinkle? All right, okay?
And I'll coordinate with Josh.
Yes, sir.
Next item on the agenda is closed session pursuant to General Statute 143, 318, 11A6 for personnel and 143, 318, 11A3 to consult an attorney. If there's no other comments on the agenda, I'll accept the motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. What do you need?